In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. I am Dr. Faiza from the Department of Anatomy, Punjab Medical College, Faisalabad Medical University, Faisalabad. So, the dear students of second year MBBS and first year BDS, here is a demonstration for you on the topic of internal capsule. In this topic, we are going to define the internal capsule, and we will enumerate the different parts of the internal capsule. Then we will illustrate the internal capsule and describe the components of each part. At the last but not the least, the blood supply and its clinical importance. If we look at first of all, we must have an idea how the gray and white matter is organized in the different parts of the central nervous system. It's not going to follow the same organization from the spinal cord up till the cerebrum. The organization, if we see, we find that in brainstem we have the similar organization with that of the spinal cord. That are the nuclei which are around the ventricles and the tracts on outside. While if we look at the cerebrum and the cerebellum, we find the white matter covered with a layer of neural cortex, that is a gray matter. So these two figures are also giving you a very good and a clear description about the organization of the white matter and the gray matter, right? So you must be very clear that how the gray and white matter are organized in the brainstem, in the spinal cord, brainstem, cerebellum, and then the cerebrum. If we look at the white matter of the cerebral hemisphere, right, the cerebral cortex, we find the gray surface, the cortex, with the white tracts lying internally. White tracts are lying internally. So these white tracts or the white fibers are what? They are grouped into different categories, and this grouping of the white fibers depends upon their connections which they are providing, their extent or the length, right? They are traveling in the central nervous system. So in the white matter, we say that we have the different types of fibers, and these fibers are the commisural fibers or the commissures, right, which connect the corresponding gyri of the two hemispheres. They are going to connect the two hemispheres of the with the corresponding gyri, right? And the examples of the commissures we are having is one of the biggest and the largest commissure in the cerebrum is the corpus callosum. Then we have the anterior commissure, posterior commissure, habenular commissure, and then we have the fornix. Then you have the projection fibers or the tracts which connect more or less vertically. Then we have the association fibers that connect the one gyrus to another, but in the same hemisphere, right? So what is the difference between the commisural fibers and the association fibers? That commisural fibers are connecting the gyri of the two hemispheres, right? While the association fibers, they are concerned with the same hemisphere, right? You can see in the in this figure very clearly that these green one, these are the commisural fibers which are extending from the one cerebral hemisphere to the other hemisphere, right? While the blue ones, the blue bundle of fibers, they are the association fibers. They are connecting the one gyrus to the other gyrus in the same hemisphere. They are not crossing their limits. They know that they have to be in limits, they have to be in the same hemisphere, right? They can't move out of their own hemisphere. While the commercial fibers, they want to know what the corresponding gyre of the other hemisphere is doing, right? They are giving connection, they are transporting the information, or they are the connections between the two hemispheres. Okay, then we come again to the commissures. You must be very clear with the commissures. They connect the corresponding gyri of the two hemispheres, that is the corpus callosum and the anterior commissure, right? Then we have association fibers. They connect the one gyrus to an other, but in the same hemisphere. Always remember with your mnemonics that commissures cross their limits. Commissure cross from one hemisphere to the other hemisphere, while the associations are never cross their limits. They don't want to know what the other hemisphere is doing. They are least concerned with the other hemisphere, while the commissures are concerned with the other hemisphere, right? So in this figure you can see this is a sagittal section which is showing us the corpus callosum in the green. This is the largest commissure of the brain, and then we have the association fibers. Now if we look at the detail of the association fibers, we find that these fibers which connect the different cortical areas of the same hemisphere to one another, right? We have these are subdivided into the following types. Here you can see the short association fibers. They connect the adjacent gyrus to one another, right? Then you have the long association fibers. These long association fibers are again divided according to their purpose, that to which two or three parts they are joining. So that we must be clear that we have in long association fibers, we have uncinate fasciculus, we have cingulum, we have superior longitudinal fasciculus, inferior longitudinal fasciculus, and the fronto-occipital fasciculus. In the uncinate fasciculus, they connect the temporal pole to the motor speech area and to the orbital cortex, while the cingulum, that connecting the cingulate gyrus to the parahippocampal gyrus seen on the medial surface. Superior longitudinal fasciculus connecting the frontal lobe to the occipital and the temporal lobe. Now look at the superior longitudinal fasciculus, that is connecting the frontal lobe to the occipital and the temporal lobe. Their extent, look at their extent. Then you have inferior longitudinal fasciculus, that is connecting the occipital and the temporal lobes. Then you have number 5, you have the fronto-occipital fasciculus seen on the medial surface. So the commissure fibers consist of corpus callosum, fornix, anterior commissure, posterior commissure, and the habenular commissure, right? I hope you must be clear with the types of fibers up till now. So again you are provided with a figure to show you the corpus callosum. Here this figure is showing you the anterior commissure, right? Then if we look at the association fibers, it is showing you the short association fibers, right? Then in the long association fibers, it is showing you the cingulum, superior longitudinal fasciculus, inferior longitudinal fasciculus, right? And just write this. Okay, again this is the how the fibers are arranged, how they are connecting different parts of the brain to one another and to the other hemisphere, right? So I have explained this. Association fibers are of two types: short association fibers, long association fibers. In the long association fibers, we have the superior longitudinal fasciculus, inferior longitudinal fasciculus, and cingulum, uncinate fasciculus, and the fronto-occipital fasciculus. Again, the same thing. So the most important, that is the projection fibers. So the projection fibers consist of the internal capsule, right? What is the definition of internal capsule? Internal capsule is what? These are the projection fibers which are the myelinated nerve fibers, white matter, between the caudate nucleus and the thalamus medially and lentiform nucleus laterally. So concentrate on this figure. It's showing this black bent rod like structure. This is the internal capsule. You can say that it is in the form of, it is a V shape structure. Its concavity is facing laterally, right? Or you can say, if you find it, that it's in a form of a trumpet, right? So how it, if you find the relations, or we describe its location in the hemisphere, in the cerebral hemisphere, we will say that the caudate nucleus and thalamus, purple and orange structures, caudate, thalamus, are lying medially. The lentiform nucleus is lying laterally, right? Now, what internal capsule? This is a compact bundle of fibers through which the large collection of fibers pass, right? Means this capsule is enclosing the bundle of fibers which are passing from it. Some fibers are coming down and some fibers are coming from down to upward to the cerebral hemisphere. The thalamocortical and the corticothalamic fibers, corticopontine, corticobulbar, and corticospinal fibers. They pass through the internal capsule, and then the cerebral peduncles or the crus cerebri, and the fibers projection from the cerebral cortex to various nuclei of the extrapyramidal system, that is the putamen and the caudate nucleus. Now if we see the shape of the internal capsule, we find it is a continuous sheet of fibers that forms the medial boundary of the lentricular nucleus or the lentiform nucleus. It continues around posteriorly and inferiorly to partially envelop this nucleus. Posteriorly भी जा रहा है, and it is also going on the inferior surface of the lenticular nucleus and envelops it. Okay, that's why I have told you that you can also consider it in a form of a trumpet, right? Inferiorly, many of the fibers of the internal capsule funnel into the cerebral peduncles or the crus cerebri. Superiorly, the fibers fan out into the corona radiata. Now I am going to explain this in a simple way, that the fibers, just consider your arm and spread out the fingers of your hand like in a fan like fashion, right? Spread your fingers, right? Now consider the portion of the arm at your wrist joint, that these are the crus cerebri, these are the cerebral peduncles, right? Then the this palm of your hand that is V shape, that is, just consider it for a few times that it is V shape. This V shape is the internal capsule, and these spreaded fingers, these are what? These are the fibers spreading out or fanning out from the internal capsule, and these fanning out of the spreading out of the fibers from the internal capsule is called the corona radiata. Right? I hope it is clear. Here they travel in the cerebral white matter to reach the cortical origins or destinations. Right? They might originate from the cortex or they might destinate. Right? The fibers coming from the different parts of the central nervous system and coming to their destination, that is the cortex, or the fibers taking their origin from the cortex and going to different parts of the central nervous system. The entire fiber system is shaped like a trumpet with a large notch cut out of its bell. The notch corresponds to the location where this sheet of fibers is interrupted by a lateral sulcus. Right? The ventricular nucleus sits where a mute would sit in a trumpet. The internal capsule is, I have explained you its location. So now we are going to discuss the different parts of the internal capsule. The internal capsule consists of the anterior limb, that is a portion between the lenticular nucleus and the head of the caudate nucleus. Then we have the posterior limb, that is a portion between the lenticular nucleus and the thalamus. The genu is a portion at the junction of the above two parts, that is the anterior and posterior limb are having their junction. There is a bend, and that portion is adjacent to the interventricular foramen. The retrolenticular part, the name indicates retro, is a portion posterior to the lentiform nucleus, and sublenticular part is the portion inferior to the lentiform nucleus. Here this black dotted line is the internal capsule. Here is the lentiform nucleus in the green. Then you have the purple is the caudate nucleus. Then the orange color you can see the thalamus. Right? Then here is showing you the parts of the lentiform nucleus, that is the globus pallidus and the putamen. Right? Then the internal capsule, external capsule. Right? Here you can just see the arrangement of the cerebral nuclei, the diencephalon, the telencephalon. Right? You know the crown is the telencephalon, and the internally the hidden part is the diencephalon. So this figure is just to show you that how the bundle of nerve fibers are traveling. They are passing from the crus cerebri. They are entering into the capsule, internal capsule. Right? This black pipe or tunnel is your internal capsule, and these purple expanding, spreading out or fanning out fibers are the corona radiata. Internal capsule is what? It is just holding the fibers in a very sophisticated and in a very arranged manner. It does not allow the spreading out of the fibers before their destination or origin. Right? It gives them a very good entry or a very good exit from the cortex. Right? From the crus cerebri, these blue lines, they enter into the internal capsule. You have seen the capsule like the moxil capsule. What is it? When you open it, you find a white powder in it, a lot of white powder. Right? that white powder, consider it just like the white fibers, bundle of fibers, right? So this same like this, that this internal capsule is holding that white powder, white matter, or the white fibers of the bundle of fibers in a compacted way, right? And the beauty of this internal capsule is that different rooms or different specific locations of these fibers have been allocated. No one can go change their position or location according to their origin and destination from the point they are coming out or the point they are going to destinate. They are provided the one specific room or the location, like the central location or the interior location, right? The interior one, which are the frontopontine, which are coming from the frontal lobe and going downward into the pons. Again the same figure. Parts of the internal capsule: the interior limb, that is residing between the chordate and the lentiform nucleus. Okay, I have explained you already, I am repeating it again. Then the genu, that is the junction point between the anterior and the posterior limb, or the band between the anterior and posterior limb is the genu. Then you have the posterior limb, that is the thalamus and the lentiform nucleus. Posterior limb, that is lying between the thalamus and the lentiform nucleus. Then you have the retrolentiform part, and then you have the sublentiform part. Here you are being shown the interior limb, chordate nucleus in purple, green is the lentiform nucleus. This blue color or the turquoise color is the thalamus, right? Now what the internal capsule is doing, the interior limb, that why we have shown you in the lines, dotted areas, black shaded dots. Why I'm showing you that the fibers are given the specific rooms. These are the specific rooms of specific fibers. They will never enter, they will never disturb the others location with themselves. This is the corona radiator coming out of the internal capsule, fanning out or the spreading out of the white matter or the myelinated nerve fibers in the cerebral cortex. Then you have the types of the fibers. In the types of the fibers, you have thalamic radiations that consist of the superior, anterior, posterior, and the inferior thalamic radiations, right? Then you have the cortical, corticospinal, corticonuclear, corticopontine, that consist of frontopontine, rhitopontine, and the extratemporopontine, and then you have the extrapyramidal. And thalamic radiations, thalamocortical fibers. Thalamic nuclei project to the ipsilateral cerebral cortex for. So in short term, you can say that thalamic radiations are divided into superior, anterior, posterior, and inferior. So the superior one, from where they come from the ventral nuclei, right? And the interior thalamocortical, they are coming from the interior and medial nuclei of the thalamus. The posterior thalamocortical are coming from the optic radiations. The inferior thalamocortical radiations are from the auditory radiations. Then you have the components. So again, the components of the internal capsule, showing you the anterior limb and the specific tracts occupying their specific rooms or specific location in the internal capsule. Then they cannot change their location, right? This is how they get this location, or this allotment of their rooms depends upon their origin and destination, the components, right? You can just see them according to you, just it is explained to you for your convenience, that you must not get confused when you read your textbook. Okay, the blood supply I will cover it in the next lecture. So this is your whole internal capsule, what the internal capsule is, how it is formed, and how what are the relations, what is the shape of the internal capsule, right, and how it is holding the things, right. So this is the whole story about the internal capsule. If you have any query, please let me know on our WhatsApp group so I can clear you. Okay, take care of yourself and your family. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.